On today's episode of the Mark Titus Show, we are officially less than a week from the start of the college basketball season, and spoiler alert, it's already Duke's year. Cooper Flagg commits to Duke this morning. Not really a surprise. As first reported on the Mark Titus Show, people are asking. I did say this, didn't I, TJ?
You said it a while ago. Yeah.
I said it, yeah. And I was the only one. I don't think anybody else was saying Cooper Flagg. I'm kidding, of course. Literally everybody was saying Cooper Flagg to Duke except like a contingent of UConn fans that popped out of nowhere and were like, now hang on a second. Is it UConn? I don't think it was ever really UConn. The kid had Duke written all over his face from the start. Cooper Flagg commits to Duke, but it's not just that, TJ. It's also this. 4 of the AP top 5 teams lost in scrimmages, exhibitions, whatever you want to call them. We had Kansas at Illinois. They lose in the charity exhibition for Maui. Purdue loses at Arkansas in overtime in an exhibition that was to raise money for Arkansas tornado victims. Michigan State loses at home to Tennessee in a Maui exhibition. And then Marquette reportedly in a secret scrimmage lost like 115 to 111, I think it was the score, to Michigan, who's supposed to suck. But maybe Michigan. Actually, Michigan's not supposed to suck as bad as it. But there was a moment in the offseason where I was like, man, Michigan's going to be the worst team in the Big Ten. They just beat the number 5 team in the country in a secret scrimmage. The one team in the top 5 that did not lose in a scrimmage or an exhibition was the Duke Blue Devils. So it might be Duke's year. It just might be Duke's year. Anyway, Kevin Sweeney of Sports Illustrated is here to talk about all that. I had Kevin he's a Chicago guy. I had him come into the studio. We had a great conversation about these exhibition games. He was in Champaign, I think, for the Illinois-Kansas game. I know. He said he was. For the Illinois-Kansas game, we talked about that a little bit, and the Tennessee, Michigan State, and Purdue, Arkansas. Some other stuff throughout. He's great at what he does, and he's a good Twitter follow as well. Can't recommend following him enough. But, that's what we got on the docket today is Kevin Sweeney, Sports Illustrated, here to talk through some of these exhibitions, talk a little Cooper Flagg, talk a little NIT reform as well. We touched on that. In case you missed it, the NIT is kind of dead. But it's actually – the ratings will say it's never been more alive. Like, it's kind of going to be a better television product, but also at the same time not. It's indicative of what's going on in college sports, which is that it's going to make more money, it's going to be better television ratings, but the entire heart and soul of what made it has been ripped out and shit all over. So anyway, we talked a little bit about that at the end. Without further ado, Kevin Sweeney. All right, Kevin Sweeney is here talking about some of these charity exhibitions and whatever the hell else comes up. You were in Champaign for the Kansas-Illinois game?
Yeah, I was indeed.
Yeah. So the environment on TV looked insane, which is something I guess we could do like a macro thing with these charity exhibitions, but it felt like the ones I was watching, like the environments were nuts. It felt like real life. Did it feel that way inside the arena? Because it felt like watching on TV, I was like, this is not October. This is this is the middle of the season.
I would say it was like 85% of like an elite Champaign experience.
Okay.
I still remember. I think the best in-person environment I've ever been was Illinois, Arizona 2 years ago.
Okay.
And that was like I couldn't believe how nuts everyone was at that game. And I think there was a little bit of like, okay, it doesn't actually matter if we beat the number 1 team in the country today.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was still
you
awesome.
wouldn't know it from
Right.
Illinois on Twitter. The Illinois fans on Twitter. You wouldn't know that game didn't count because they are fired up. They're like, are we the best team in the country? We just beat the number 1 team in the country. Another thing that I could pick up through the television was, boy, do they hate Hunter Dickinson. These Illinois fans.
It's wild. Like, I didn't necessarily expect that they would like crush Bill Self, but I thought there'd be at least like a little bit of booing.
Yeah.
And they were just like, no, Bill's fine. It's really Hunter that we care about.
Yeah, they said that on the broadcast. They Andy Katz and Robbie Hummel were calling it, and they were doing like the interviews with they interviewed Underwood and Self like right before the game started, and Self just mentioned, he's like, I'm so glad Hunter is here because it's taking all the attention off of me. Like nobody even cares that I'm back at the school that, you know, he didn't build the program, but like, you know, he had a lot of success there. And he, you know, kind of stabbed them. If you ask Illinois fans, they'll say he stabbed them back. This is his first time back on campus. They do not care. They were just like, all attention is on Hunter.
Yeah, I saw like one column that was like, what if Bill Self had never left and we won like 6 championships in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone else really cared. Though. Everybody was on to, like, how do we make Hunter Dickinson's life a living hell for the 2 hours he's here?
Well, it's so funny because they're kind of right. I do think they live in his head. Like, I do think Illinois kind of owns Hunter. Like, I think like he's never won there. And
which is nuts.
He's not always played like shit, to be fair. Like, Hunter Dickinson has had some good games, but he's literally never won a game in there. And he hates the Illinois fans. They hate him back. It's all delightful, and it makes like a random ass. I mean, it's not that random. They're 2 ranked teams and the number 1 team in the country, but kind of a random ass exhibition game in October suddenly like has weight to it, and I was like locked in the whole game. Like, this is crazy. Like, why did it take until now? Do you think that we'll have more of these in the future? Like, God, I hope this is a trend, Kevin. Do you think like we'll see more of this moving forward?
I think so. I mean, we've seen kind of waves of it come and go, right? I remember, I think it was the hurricane in Houston like 5 years ago where there was a few decently big games. But I think every time there's a big tragedy, and this sounds like crazy to say, but like every time there's a big tragedy, everyone looks around and is like, well, I guess there's an opportunity to do a charity exhibition now. Like, and it's so stupid that there has to be like the NCAA has to approve every single one of these games, like all the way down to like Mount St. Mary's played Bucknell because Bucknell's high school coach, Bucknell's coach's like high school teammate has ALS, and they were raising money for him. Like, that had to be approved by the NCAA. Like, why do we need all the red tape here? If teams want to play whoever they want to play, as many times as they want to play them in the preseason, let them do that. I mean, I would love that these games were real games. Like, that to me would be amazing, right? Like, if we started college basketball season with absolute thriller Michigan State, Tennessee, overtime Purdue, Arkansas, and number 1 team in the country losing, it would be like...
That would have been the greatest...
Right, sports
weekend,
back.
Yeah.
Like, this is the best
You're so
thing ever.
right.
But if nothing else, like, the fact that there's any red tape over, like, we want to raise $1 million for the people of Maui, the NCAA has to be like, well, let's dot our I's and cross our T's.
Yeah.
It's just so nuts.
That does seem a little fucked up that we're not cheering for tragedy, but it's like you're like you're basically telling everybody, you're like, all right, if you want to see more of these, you better cross your fingers that like more natural disasters happen across the country, and then we'll get some marquee matchups. Can't we just do it without the disasters? Like, can't we? There are other charities. Not every charity has to be like, a fire or tornado or whatever else. Like, we could just raise some money for a decent cause.
What if we just made whatever? Let's move Coaches versus Cancer Week to the first week of the year.
Right.
We'll do it all as quote unquote charity, and that's the first weekend of college basketball is just raising money for cancer and playing elite games.
Yeah. As an aside, it is weird that we start the season on a Monday, because I thought about that too. That like if the weekend we just had in college basketball, which does not even count, unless you ask Arkansas and Tennessee and Illinois fans. Why it feels weird to start the season on a Monday, I guess, now that I think about it, because we should start on a weekend, on a Saturday, where we do have these marquee matchups. I don't like how we've gotten here with college basketball, where like we do kind of limp into the season. It's just kind of like a wet fart to start the season. There's a big game on Friday there's 2 of them. I guess Ohio State, Texas A&M will be fun. Arizona, Duke is the one I was initially talking about. But the Monday night, there's like kind of nothing. I miss the days where the Champions Classic like kicked us off, and that was like the big.
Well, yeah. So as I understand it, we used to have Friday night season opening start. Then we moved it to Tuesday. Champions Classic was on Tuesday.
Yep.
And then election day, like post George Floyd, there was a lot of like, all right, we need to like make sure that kids actually vote in elections, which great thing, right? Like everyone should be voting. But that just meant, okay, we can't start the season on Election Day, which is usually the first day of college basketball, that Tuesday. So then that starts the season on Monday, and ESPN can't run Champions Classic on Monday against Monday Night Football.
Monday Night Football.
So it's like...
That's true.
And once they moved it once... Because like I don't think any of the coaches actually liked playing Champions Classic the first night of the year. Like I think if you polled like Cal and Self, they would be like, yeah, it stinks. So we have to play like the best team in the country on opening night. So now that it's been moved, I don't know how we're getting it back to that.
I know.
But we need some way. Like, we need a few teams to stand up and say, like, I don't care if we lose by 30.
Right.
It's fine. It's great for the sport, and it's helpful to our kids. Like,
right. No, it's true. And with how many games they play throughout the season, I hope college football picks this up, too, is that, like, you can lose by 30 and it doesn't ruin your season. Like, my hope is when the college football playoff expands, I hope that trickles into football where they're like, yeah, why don't we just play marquee? Like, you can lose maybe 2 games and your season's not over. So who the hell cares? Let's play a tough team. The Champions Classic thing too is like all 4 of those teams, especially Duke and Kentucky, are so reliant on freshmen every single year that I imagine starting out your season with a bunch of freshmen you're throwing out there, it was not a fun experience. But no, man, I hope they figure something out with this, because like it was such a nice, delightful, random treat. Like, do it on a Sunday. Open the season on a Sunday. I guess you're competing with NFL, but like, I guess you can't do Saturday because it's college football. Sunday, you're going to compete with NFL, obviously, but you're kind of not competing with NFL. You're just you're going to compete with football no matter what day you go. Right. So like, Sunday at least, like for the people that love college sports, maybe they'll tune into marquee college. I mean, that's what happened on Sunday. Like I had NFL on. I was like, oh well, I want to watch Michigan State and Tennessee. I flipped it over to that. I just don't know why we can't start the season with these big marquee games on a day that makes sense instead of coasting into a season on a Monday. But anyway, let's talk about the games themselves. So Illinois, Kansas. What was your takeaway from? It is an exhibition. We'll offer that disclaimer. These don't actually count. Yada yada yada. At the same time, both of these coaches did not use their bench at all. It was such an intense environment. Hunter Dickinson should have been called for a flagrant foul. So yes, it is an exhibition, but it's also like they both seem to really want to win the game. What stood out to you being there?
So I thought on the Illinois side, the issue that they had last year was they had so many guys that just they were so emotional. Like their whole team was just crazy dudes. And that can work when things are going well. Like you think back and Terrence Shannon can't miss a 3 against UCLA and you're like, man, this is so fun. This team rules. But whenever they got hit in the mouth, they had no way of just being like, all right, let's take a breath. Let's go down the floor. Let's run a set. Let's get a basket. And let's stabilize the game. And this year couldn't have felt more different. Yeah. And I think part of that's the personality of the transfers they brought in. Part of that's, I think, Underwood's running more sets and being a little bit more regimented with how he's coaching these guys. But there was a moment in the second half where Kansas tied the game. And, Illinois had been leading the whole way. And, you look up and you're like, all right, last year this Illinois team then gives up an 8-0 run and loses the game. Yeah. This year they just went down the floor, ran something, got an open look, got a bucket, and steadied things out. And I think that there's just a maturity and a comfort level around this team that they didn't have last year.
For now, that's exactly my point too. Is I agree with you. As I was watching, I was like, man, this feels. It felt like they have more of a pecking order. It's obviously Terrence Shannon's team, and he's the guy. And when they need a bucket, they're going to go to him. Whereas in years past, and they've had, they won the Big Ten a couple years ago, and they were number 1 seed the year before that. But they've had good teams, but at times it has felt a little even when Iowa was there. There was they had Kofi too, and it's if we need a bucket, are we going to Kofi? Are we going to Io? Trent Frazier's in the mix, and Curbelo would be flashy and hot at times, and it's there's almost too much talent, and it just created chaos, and it feels like from watching one exhibition game, again, disclaimer, but it did feel like this is very obviously Terrence Shannon's team. Right. He is going to be the guy that runs everything for them. But yeah, I just in the back of my mind, I'm like, I've kind of seen this story before where I get excited about Illinois.
And again,
can they consistently do
Illinois
it?
is not losing to anyone when Coleman Hawkins and Terrence Shannon make 9 threes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's great that it looks great when that happens, but it better look great when that happens.
Right.
Because if it doesn't, then we're really in trouble. Right?
Well, yeah, Coleman Hawkins is I want to love him so much, but I just I've seen too much Coleman Hawkins basketball through the years where I'm there's going to be a time where he's the definition of it's Coleman Hawkins time is going through his head at all times. So it is weird because I think this roster, which is probably why they're ranked 25th, and I think that was a huge takeaway that everybody had. Obviously, is you beat the number 1 team in the country, exhibition or not. It does feel like Illinois is underrated. But I understand why they're 25th because I think the roster to me at least doesn't pop as much as the last couple years. But I actually think that's going to be a good thing for them to not have a Matthew Meyer on the team who's so fucking he was so talented, and Melendez was so good. He could be so good in stretches, and it just feels more of a traditional basketball team where it's this is our guy, this is our other guy, these are our role players, these are good, these guys are going to do this. Whereas the last couple years have just been I don't really know what this team is, but we have a ton of talent. Who's going to get hot tonight? You guys go figure it out.
They're also just like huge. I mean, Coleman at the 5 is not a big lineup. He's skinny at 6'10", but like Ty Rodgers is playing point guard. He's like 6'6", 220, and like looks like he should be playing linebacker. Shannon's huge. Damask is 6'6", 210, shredded.
Yeah.
Like their whole team is just like switchable dudes, and I think that will help defensively for what Brad like. They looked like the better team just like physically against Kansas.
Right.
And part of that's, Harris is small in the backcourt and Elmarco Jackson was in his first game. But like you didn't look at the lineups and say, all right, like that's the team that's number 1 in the country and that's the plucky underdog tonight.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was, all right, Illinois got major dudes physically.
I love Danger coming off the bench too, because he's a guy that like you don't actually need, but on any given night he could just be like a fucking bowling ball in there and just create chaos. But then if he's not, it's like, all right, well, Dane, go sit over there. Go sit down.
What he is, Dane is he's the undersized scoring guard who just comes in and chucks, except he's a center.
Yeah, right, exactly. So if Underwood has a control over that sort of thing where he has the ability to like sit Coleman Hawkins, but it's not like a disciplinary thing. Like if Coleman Hawkins gets a little too much sauce on it, and you're just like, Coleman, but it's not like a disciplinary thing where he's like fucking losing his mind as he's pulling these guys. And the same with Danger, where like Danger comes in, he's it's like Dane's just trying to cook a little too much, and it's like, Dane, we don't need all that right now. I think that's gonna be the song and dance. Is like, can you like put Dane Danger on the bench for an entire game basically and still get him to produce the next game? Or is he going to get in his head? Is there going to be some sort of like ego tug of war? I felt that, but it is one game. But from one exhibition game, I did feel that too. I felt that like this Illinois team feels a little more defined. It feels a little more like we don't have to if Illinois can just find a steady, consistent, even instead of like peaking really high and having a high ceiling and then going back to the valley and and like that, get that roller coaster out of here and just try to like figure out what you are. And even if it is like we're probably like the 12th best team in the country and we're just going to ride right there and not get any better or any worse, that's a good spot to be in. That's a really fucking good spot to be in.
It's not Illinois, but it's a great spot to be in.
Yeah, I know.
Like I guarantee there will be a game. Like them getting swept by Penn State was so funny last year. Like here's this team that's like the most athletic, like physically imposing team. Like, all right, here we go with all these 4- and 5-star dudes. And then Penn State's like, we have 3 white kids who can shoot the cover off it. We have Jalen Pickett just dicing you up. And it was like 3 times in 1 year was just unbelievable.
Was that booty ball? Was that when Underwood said they're playing booty ball against us?
Yeah, in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, Pickett he's like, we can't do anything to stop the booty ball. Pickett's just backing his ass down and spraying it all over the place. The Kansas side of this, Kansas number 1 team in the country. They still will be. This game didn't actually count, so they're still no one's going to move them off the 1 line, I assume. I don't know. Maybe people will. I find that fascinating too. Like
that'd be great.
AP voters are like, whoa. I mean, the game doesn't count, but at the same time, you want me to unsee what I just saw? I'm on record. We can roll the tapes, TJ. We have them. I did not think Kansas should be the number 1 team entering the country. I understood why people thought they should, but I had so many questions about this roster. And I don't want to say I'm vindicated. Again, it's like still haven't played an official game yet. But what was your takeaway from Kansas? Do you think like there are serious causes for concern moving forward, or do you just shrug your shoulders and say it's an exhibition on the road? Who gives a shit? Yeah,
I mean, like they probably would have been like a 2-point favorite yesterday if there was a gambling line for charity exhibitions. Mm-hmm. Like it's not like they got like that's like some terrible performance, but they didn't look very dynamic to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with that, but like last year, the concern coming in was, okay, they lost all this firepower. How do they replicate it, or how do they replace it? And Jalen Wilson comes in like looking shredded and lean, and he's running the floor better than he ever has, and like goes from shooter to scorer. It doesn't totally feel like that's happened for anyone. Like McCullough had a great game, but look, if I'm a coach and I get to play Kansas and I say, all right, go beat me, Kevin McCullough, and maybe this take will age really poorly, but right now, if I was a coach being like, all right, like the way I lose to Kansas, Kevin McCullough gives me 20, I'll be like, cool.
I'm very
that's
fine with that. Yeah.
Right. So I think they need one of the freshmen to emerge into a really viable scoring option, and maybe they thought Arterio Morris was going to be that before the rape allegation, all the the stuff that's transpired to lead him off the team. But like Elmarco Jackson looks comfortable, but I don't think he's ready to average 10 points a game yet. And they love the Johnny Furphy kid from Australia, which
who didn't play in this game,
yes,
right?
He had shin splints, I believe. And for the record, it'd be awesome if a 6'8" guy from Australia who jumps out of the gym and has like the worst haircut in college basketball. Like people aren't familiar with how bad this guy's do is, but it's like perfect Australian moss. Yeah. And it's gonna be really funny to watch if he winds up being like the difference maker for Kansas.
I think I agree with you. I think that needs to happen for them. I mean, these were my concerns coming into the season, is coming off a season where Jalen Wilson and Christian Brown are those dynamic guys on the wing that are just like, create something out of nothing type dudes offensively. And the year before that, you have Agbaji, and they just had like so much just athleticism and could run the floor, and like I don't know, like this roster to me, DeJuan Harris is a great point guard, but he's like kind of I don't mean this as a knock, it's just like the way you describe him, he's kind of like a system point guard, which is not a knock at all. It's just like I do think he'd be good in any system, but like Self has figured he knows if you put DeJuan Harris on a shitty basketball team, he's not going to like become All-American level good. What makes him good is the guys around him, and he knows how to play into them. But
the 6 points and 8 assists he had yesterday looks a lot better when he's got 6 points and 8 assists setting up Jalen Wilson or setting up Agbaji, right? Like the weapons don't feel as dangerous around him. And the fact that they're playing KJ Adams at the 4 and kind of messing up the spacing for Hunter just because they don't have a ton of other options. And KJ Adams is really good and belongs on the floor. I think that's something that they're really trying to get through right now.
Yeah, and Hunter, I have to be careful because like I am a certified Hunter hater, but most of us are. Most of us in college basketball are. Hunter's a really good player. I don't think he's a great player. I don't think he's. I think like Hunter Dickinson is defensively not good enough for I worry about Kansas's defense this year because Hunter is not that guy defensively. That they're gonna have problems with him defensively all season, and then offensively he'll give you he stuffs the stat sheet and he grabs rebounds and he can score a lot, but it's like kind of. It almost like exists in its own universe where it's like not really impacting the game. Almost
there's a lot of empty calories.
There's a lot of empty calories, right?
I think 22 and 9 yesterday, and I was like, I didn't feel like Hunter played that great.
Right.
And again, part of that, maybe that's his appeal to a certain extent, right? Like the fact that you have a 20 and 10 big when he doesn't play that well is awesome. But then you also look up and you say, all right, like he gave us 22 and 9, and I don't know if he really helped us win today.
Yeah,
that's hard.
Yeah, that's what I don't know. I need to. I think Kansas is going to be a really good team, obviously. But I don't really feel like this exhibition was. I feel comfortable overreacting to this, I should say, because I think like some of the problems I saw with Kansas, like Kevin McCullough is based on yesterday. He is their perimeter offensive threat, which he's a very, very good college player. He makes his money on the defensive end.
Right.
He's not like an offensive. He's a guy who like gets in where he fits in, and that was his role on the team last year. If he's your go-to guy, I don't love that. Hunter, he's capable, but he can't really. He's not a guy that, like puts it on the deck. He's not a guy that he can shoot, but it's more of like you're backed off, leave him open, I can hit it type thing.
Right.
He's not like a dynamic scorer really. His post moves are good, but not great. I don't know, but like he is going to put up a ton of numbers. Kansas is going to be highly ranked. He'll probably make All-American teams. There's just something off about it and I think that something off is there's no Grady Dick, there's no Jalen Wilson, there's no Christian Brown, there's no Agbaji. There's just no like elite guy like that. KJ Adams is an elite athlete, but like I don't know. It just feels like a weird roster. I don't love the bench. Also, like Timberlake might end up being a great piece off the bench for them. The Aussie kid, like you said. Maybe he's that guy. I don't know. I've never seen him play. I don't. What's his name again?
Johnny Furphy.
Furphy?
Yeah.
Like Murphy, but with an F?
Yeah, it's great. No, everything about Johnny Furphy is going to be elite content if he's really good. But no, I mean, part of this is Kansas, right? I mean, I remember I was at the New Orleans Final Four. I was having dinner the night before the championship game with a bunch of like weird mix of college basketball people, and we were talking like who's going to win tomorrow night, and somehow we one of them goes, I'm not really convinced that Kansas is all that good this year,
Yeah.
but like they're 40 minutes from winning the title, right?
Yeah,
And I think the last year I kind of felt the same way. Like, like they were really like they set the record for quadrant 1 wins, and I never really looked around and was like, man, Kansas feels overwhelming. So maybe we're overthinking this.
It is weird because Kansas has a different standard. Like I look at this Kansas team and I'm like, this is not one of the better Kansas teams. But I said that about the team that won the national title. Yeah. I remember the whole year being like, whoa, this is not. What is it? I'm not even sure this is a top 10 Bill Self Kansas team, and I still stand by that. But they won the night,
they were like a pretty normal Kansas team. They just happened to win it all.
They were not super special, but they won the national championship. But that's the joy of the sport. So yeah, if this team is one of Bill Self's worst Kansas teams, it could still be a national championship team because that just speaks to how good he's been through the years there in Lawrence. Anything else on that game? You want to talk about some of these others?
Yeah, let's talk else.
The other game yesterday, Tennessee, Michigan State, which was the better game. I do want to overreact to this game because I was very much a Tennessee hater up until yesterday. I've been told over and over that this Tennessee team is going to be good, but I feel like it was. I just kept saying I'll believe it when I see it. It's going to be the same Tennessee, the same song and dance. They're going to play great defense. It's going to be a rock fight. It's going to be disgusting basketball. I'm going to hate watching them, but I'm going to have to respect them because they're going to beat some good teams and have a great resume. But like, woof, the offense is going to look bad at times. Yada, yada, yada. I don't care who they're bringing in. You said it last year with Tyreek Key that he's going to be the difference. Right. He was not. It was the same bullshit. So this is what I was prepared to see out of Tennessee. I turned that game on. I was blown away. Dalton Knecht, Jordan Gainey, like these two dudes are difference makers and then some. Tennessee might be the best team in the country. That was my takeaway. I was like, if they can guard like they've guarded the past few years, and Knecht is, holy shit, that dunk he had. I didn't know
it was so awesome.
I didn't know he had that. Oh my god. So that's my opening statement. It was just like Tennessee. Again, I understand the concept. They started this game up 17-1, and Michigan State's supposed to be a ready-made team, which like that doesn't exist in college basketball. No matter how many guys you're bringing back, you still have to like work through shit in the offseason, and you always have new guys, and I understand all that. But as far as like teams that we expect to hit the ground running, Michigan State with what they brought back, I expected Michigan State to be a team that like was really, really good out of the gate compared to everyone else. And Tennessee, I was like, I need to see it first. And I felt like I saw it on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, so the big caveat here is that last year Tennessee played Gonzaga in like one of the only actual charity exhibition games, and they made 1,000,000 threes. They won 99-80.
That's true.
And I was so ready. I was all
Kevin,
in.
You're so right.
And I'm right. Trying so hard not to do it again, but also like, so when preseason KenPom came out a couple weeks ago, I saw Tennessee was second in defense, and one of my friends who's on the Tennessee staff calls me, and I assume he's calling me to whine that they're not number one in defense. I was like, dude, why do we care? Like it's preseason. I said, you're not number one in defense? He goes, we're not going to be because we're starting Dalton Knecht. And this kid is unbelievable. And trust me, he is good, and trust me, we are going to be way better offensively. And there it was, right? So, look.
I want them to be worse defensively. I think that's a good thing.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
Right, because the biggest concern you should have about Tennessee is Rick Barnes watching Dalton Knecht get blown by some guy and being like, to the bench, rest of the half, you're done, right? He has to be willing to give up 12 points to get 17 from Dalton, right? And because he is that talented offensively. Gainey's really talented offensively. He also played pretty well defensively. Like, the film was very good there. To do that without Zakai Ziegler and Vescovi was really impressive. I'm all in.
So the $1 million question now is what happens when those guys come back.
Right.
Vescovi not hurt, right? He was just like home for a personal
family matter.
Yeah. Ziegler's hurt, but he's supposed to be back at some point.
Yes.
They said on the broadcast, or Rick Barnes said on the broadcast, like we're doing well with, like, obviously during this game, Knecht and Gainey are playing well, but Zakai. He made a joke to Zakai, like, when you come back, you'll be our 9th man. And Zakai was like, fuck that. No, I won't. I'm sorry. So, like, it was like an innocent little throwaway comment, but also, like, I'm watching the game unfold, and I'm like, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the minutes.
I mean,
when these guys come back.
They have a lot of mouths to feed. Like, they were bringing Freddie DeLeon, who's a top 30 kid in the country, and like
might be a lottery pick, right?
He's in the I think he's the first rounder in the Gavoni mock, right? Like, they're bringing him off the bench yesterday without the 2 starting guards. Like, and that's not a thing of we don't think Freddie DeLeon is good. Like, they really like that kid. but they just have a ton of mouths to feed. So that'll be interesting chemistry-wise. They brought Zakai off the bench like half of last year. He played starters minutes, but I think after the Colorado game, week 1 of the year, when they got beat randomly, Barnes was like, fire him up, like, go to the bench, Zakai, like, what are you doing? So I think maybe, like, I don't know what they'll do, like, who starts, who comes off the bench with Zakai and Gainey, but I didn't really anticipate that being a point guard battle, and now it seems like we might have.
Yeah, with how good they played yesterday, like that was my big takeaway too. Is like you got kind of 5 guards now that I feel like you have to start. And you have a lottery pick. You can't bring Connect off the. You can, but I'm saying like in terms of talent, if you're like guys I look at, I'm like, oh yeah, he's a starter for sure. Ziegler is that. Vescovy is that. DeLeon is that. It's in terms of talent, I guess maybe he would be the guy, even though he's Gainey and Connect looked like I'm like you're not starting all 5 of them obviously. Like how are you going to handle this?
I think the good thing is it's going to. I already think they were planning on not playing 2 bigs like they did last year.
Yeah.
But I think now it's like they just have no ability to because they have to get these guards on the floor and keep everybody fed. So like just think about that from like an offensive standpoint, right? Like you're switching out Plavsic, who is just like all-time enforcer, do nothing offensively, for Dalton Connect. Like that's going to be a pretty good offensive jump in terms of what they can do.
Dude, Plavsic was just he was a goon in every sense of the word. He was like I think he would take that as a compliment. That his whole role on that team is just to be a fucking goon and come in and throw elbows.
Every like Rick Barnes aged coach is gonna have some guy that they really want to turn into Bill Laimbeer.
Yeah,
and like that was Plavsic.
And I need that out of Tennessee basketball. Like it's served them well to a certain extent. And it worked against Duke, and I guess it got them to the Sweet 16. But like if Tennessee wants to go to Final Fours, if Tennessee wants to, like take that next step as a program, you got to get some basketball players on the court. Crazy concept, I know, but like we got to get these football dudes out of here, and you got to start playing some hoop, man. And my God, Dalton Connect is a hooper. Holy shit! I wanted to go like buy his jersey immediately. I knew of him. I didn't know him like that. And when he cocked it, he goes behind the back, cocked it back, yammed it on. Was it Malik Hall? I don't remember who it was on Michigan State, but I was like, I jumped off my couch. I was like, holy shit, that was incredible. So if Tennessee has that dynamic, and they don't need to be as good as they've been defensively. I think they need to be like 75% as good.
They'll still be elite defensively because it's Rick Barnes, and they're athletic, and Zakai on the ball is awesome. Like they will have no issues guarding you. But like, yes, if Barnes is consistently willing, and I think he will be, especially after yesterday, but we'll see. Like as long as he's willing to actually let these guys play through mistakes defensively, they're gonna be a problem.
Yeah, and if Tennessee can just erase like 8-minute scoring droughts, and like the graphic, every Tennessee game is like no field goal for the last 13 minutes, but they're still somehow up by like 2.
So
you get that out of here and get some offense in there. I'm really excited for that. The Michigan State side of things, like I don't know, Tennessee turned the ball over a ton too. Michigan State was throwing it all over the place. Like I think Michigan State is still going to be a great basketball team, but there is like a little bit of a reminder. I felt that way when the game started. A little bit of a reminder that yes, they did go to the Sweet 16. Yes, they had Kansas State right there to go to the Elite 8. But Michigan State was a 7 seed last year for a reason, which was like they weren't that great for most of the year. So like bringing back all those guys and telling me all these guys went to the Sweet 16, almost made the Elite 8. Could have. We had a path. There was an opening to maybe go to the Final Four right there in front of us. Like we could have maybe just now we bring all those guys back. Let's go. It's our year. But the way the game started, I was like, well, there you go. That's the Michigan State team is they kind of have the same problem as Tennessee, where they have like so many guards and so many mouths to feed. You don't know who's going to step up and all that sort of thing. What was your takeaway from the Michigan State side of things?
They just like there's a cap on how good they can be if the whole team is just Hogard, Walker, Akins, Malik Hall, right? Like if that's the team, they're good. They're not a top 5 team.
Yeah.
If Izzo really feeds into these freshmen, Cohen Carr, Jeremy Fears, and Booker up front, then things get interesting. But it's going to be hard to force feed those guys minutes. I mean, look, remember, this is the same coach, and everyone's made this comment a million times, who played Ben Carter over Jaren Jackson Jr. Like, he loves his old dudes. So getting him, especially early in the year, just to be like, Xavier Booker, I understand you're worse than Sissoko right now, you're worse than Carson Cooper right now, but, like, you're playing these minutes, and we're figuring it out whether it's going to work or not. Like, they have to do that.
Yeah.
Especially Booker, because they've been, when Michigan State's been awesome over the years, it's been when their defense at the rim has been lights out, right? Like, they've always had that rim protection. The last 3 years, they've been outside the top 100 in KenPom defending 2-point shots. So that's not probably going to change with the same personnel.
Yeah.
You have this 7-footer who can run and jump and do everything. You gotta try. Like, it has to be invested in that Booker becomes a factor up front.
Especially because so much of Michigan State's stuff is transition. I mean, that's
Right.
where they dominate. Is just getting out and running. And I worry about the half court, just that, like, they have so many guys that are so good with the ball in their hands, but they are kind of like there's only one basketball team. Like, Hogard needs the ball in his hands to be as good as he is. Tyson Walker can play off the ball, but then when he is running point, he looks so good that you're like, why would we play him off the ball? But then also, Jaden Akins is kind of Fears is a great guard. Like, I just kind of feel like, not that they have ego problems, because that's whenever you say there's only one ball, the underlying thing is that, like, these guys hate each other. I don't really feel like it's that. I just feel like all these guys are at their best when they have the ball in their hands.
You're getting 80% of a lot of guys instead of, like, the full.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
So they're gonna when Michigan State looks really, really fucking good is when they're out in transition, and what triggers that is if you have a rim protector that can get boards and block shots and all that sort of thing. Sissoko's not it, by the way. Like, I want to like Sissoko, but I remember watching the aircraft carrier game, and he was kind of I don't know how to say it. He wasn't, like, awesome, but he was, like, a little bit of a revelation where you're just like, oh, damn, he could be something. This guy was against Gonzaga. Do you remember that game?
Well, it was so funny because all offseason, everyone just, like, yelled at Izzo and, like, how dare you not take a transfer?
Right,
what are you doing? And then he just kind of outplayed Drew Timme that day.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, all right.
Yeah, Izzo's
right. Like, vindicated.
And then I don't think he's played that well since.
No. He's like a replacement level center, which is fine, but if you're going to go win a national title, maybe you need a little more than that.
I need Carson Cooper in the starting lineup or Xavier Booker in the starting lineup. I just need to see what it looks like. I need more Cohen Carr, too. I love that kid so much. Cohen Carr is I can't get enough of him. All he does is dunk the basketball, but it's always awesome.
He dunks everything. Somehow his like nose is above the rim on every dunk. Like he is so explosive. I don't know what else he's gonna really provide. Maybe defense.
Yeah.
Like, maybe he can become like that dog defender that they need.
Yeah.
Because, like, he's again another guy. They just have to find a way to get him minutes, especially early.
Yeah. But he could be a guy that he's not going to be a guy that needs the ball in his hands. Like,
no.
He's not going to.
Right.
So maybe having him out there with some mix of these ball dominant guards is an answer where it's like, Cohen, just play great defense, run the floor, and every so often back cut your guy and we'll throw it up at the rim, and you can throw your nuts in the rim as you're dunking and, point to the crowd and get everybody hyped. That dunk contest, that is. Brandon Walker, I do a show with Brandon Walker in the morning, who's like more of a college football guy and doesn't pay attention to college basketball basically till like January, and he will not stop texting me about Cohen Carr. He saw the Cohen Carr dunk yesterday, one of them. I mean, he had multiple, but I just get a random text from him. He's like, I love this kid so much. Like, Cohen Carr
He's the casuals national player of the year. It's awesome.
Yeah, he is the casual. That's a great way to put it. Cohen Carr, I think right now is leading the casual national player of the year race. People that aren't paying any attention are just like, who is this kid that jumped from the free throw line and then went between his legs off the side of the backboard in a dunk contest? What the hell? Is he Michigan State's best player? He's not, but he might be. I don't know. Maybe he would. Like, maybe there is a path where Cohen Carr is just like, I'm gonna dunk on everybody just constantly. He's like, I'm just baby Zion out there. Just like, probably not, but. That's my dream. Michigan State is. I think they're going to be good. I don't know if I'm ready to say they're going to be great yet, though, just because it's they do feel like a team that you're running all those guys back. Like, I need to see how these freshmen get into the mix, and if they don't, if you are going to limit the minutes these freshmen play, then I need to see more consistency out of it. Like if you're counting on Malik Hall to be your guy, I don't like Tyson Walker's going to be the best player. Tyson Walker's probably not an NBA player, is he? You know,
right.
Like Malik Hall, like
all the pros on this team are coming off the bench.
Right, that's
a weird dynamic.
That's a weird dynamic. So I just kind of want to see what that looks like first. The other, we have anything else on Tennessee, Michigan State? You want to talk Arkansas, Purdue?
Yeah, let's talk Razorbacks.
Talk Arkansas, Purdue. So Arkansas wins this one 81-77 in overtime. This was an insane atmosphere. Like the Arkansas fans are actually insane, and I think I say that lovingly, but also every so often I'm like, I don't know if I love it anymore. Like this is crazy. I see this as both teams won. This was a game to me that like both teams won. I actually, this is gonna sound insane. I think the more Purdue loses this year, the best it is for them. I think Purdue losing games is actually the best thing that could happen to them because my like the worst case scenario to me with Purdue is that they just get so entrenched in Matt Painter, and I've said this a million times, that I think Matt Painter cares way too much about winning the regular season Big Ten championship. That's like something that matters greatly to Purdue, that they've won more Big Ten championships than anyone else. They put such a huge emphasis on that by the time the tournament rolls around, it's like a completely different sport that they're not prepared to play. And I think if they let loose their grip on the Big Ten and they're willing to tinker with shit a little bit more, and they're willing to, like Zach Edey only played 24 minutes in this game, which was, a lot of fouls and it's a scrimmage and whatever else. But I think figuring out the rest and trusting that Edey will be Edey, I think that's a good formula. So even though Purdue lost in overtime, like I don't think any Purdue fan should be like, oh shit, last time we saw them, they lost to a 16 seed. Now we see them for the first time this year, they lose again. I think Purdue's going to be just fine.
My view on it was, if you came in thinking Purdue's on the way to being Virginia 2.0, right? Like they're a great team. It's proven that they're a great team, and it's just a matter of getting an NCAA tournament break. That game shouldn't have changed your mind. Mm-hmm. And if you came in being like, this team's a fraud, they can't beat anyone who's athletic, they can't beat anyone with guards, you probably left thinking the same thing, because Arkansas's small or athletic guards were a problem for Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer, just like they're always going to be, right? Like Braden Smith will keep getting better. I'm a Braden Smith believer, but every time Braden Smith goes up against like a 6'3" athletic combo guard, it's not going to be a fun night for him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it was just like a confirm your priors game. I think it was a good game for Painter in the sense that like they got to play some time without Edey and experience that in a tough environment against a good team. But I didn't come away overly like surprised either way on Purdue.
Purdue is somehow there. We have a Schrodinger's Purdue situation where Purdue simultaneously can never beat the team that it's become like a meme, a joke, whatever, that Purdue will always choke. Purdue, you put them in the NCAA tournament, they're going to choke. You put them up against a good team when it matters, they're going to lose. They do it over and over and over again. They've done it for decades now. They're a good, not great program, yada, yada, yada. But at the same time, when teams beat Purdue, it is like a sign that you are good, So like somehow they both suck so bad that they'll never win anything, but also they're so good that when you beat them, your team is now good.
They're the peak court storm program at the moment.
Yeah,
if you beat Purdue, really you have to storm the court.
But everybody beats them. I'm putting that in quote. Like
they're the perfect team that you chant overrated all night in the student section, and then you storm the court like this is the biggest
win of ever.
History.
Yeah. And then you get on the internet and you're like, these guys fucking suck, dude. Purdue, like Arkansas fan, they're not actually doing this. I'm using this as an example because this is the latest game that they played, but like, I would not be surprised if Arkansas fans were like, dude, Purdue kind of sucks. Like, Edey's just a big stiff, and Braden Smith he can't dribble. He can't really do much out there. Purdue fucking stinks, dude. But the Hogs, we're going all the way this year because we just beat Purdue. And you're like, well, if Purdue wait a second, if they stink, then you going to overtime with them shouldn't mean that you're good. Somehow Purdue lives in that middle ground. I agree with you though. It's a great way of putting it. Like whatever your opinion was on Purdue, this game did not change that. All the red flags that were I guess that's the concern though, is that like the red flags that you had about Purdue last year bore themselves out in this game. Braden Smith struggled with the athletic guards. They didn't shoot the three well. The kid they got from what was Southern Illinois, the transfer, Lance Jones. He's supposed to be offense for them. He was like 2 for 11 in this game. these sorts of Miles Colvin, the freshman from Indianapolis, who's supposed to be an athletic freak and kind of give them a different dynamic and kind of address some of the issues you're saying. Like Braden Smith is getting pressed and he's looking over at the bench like, what do I do, coach? And he's like, play basketball, Braden. And he's like, fuck, dude, I don't. This guy's
it's not my thing.
He's tall and he's got long arms. Like I don't know what to do. In my head, I'm thinking, all right, well maybe Miles Colvin's for that. He's an athletic freak and I don't know if he's gonna be a one-man press breaker, but he just gives a different dynamic where it's like, you can't overwhelm us with athleticism anymore. But he didn't really play much in this game. So I want for Purdue this year, I want these losses to happen. I want Matt Painter to, instead of going, all right, shit, we just lost that game. We can't lose 2 in a row. So here's the plan. Next game, we're going to dump it into Edie all game. And we got Northwestern. All right, we can't lose to Northwestern if we want to win the Big Ten. So, Zach, you're going to get every touch down the floor, and we're just going to, just slowly shift right back into the same thing we've always been. I want him to be like, all right, well, fuck, Braden, your minutes are going down, buddy. I'm sorry to say, but, we got to try something else out because I don't want this to happen again in the NCAA tournament. I don't necessarily trust that that's going to happen. I feel like Matt Painter's too stubborn.
It's weird because I think Painter's one of the most introspective coaches in the country. Like, he has been really, I think Fairleigh Dickinson in particular really made him think about a lot of different things. But then you also talk to him. I interviewed him for a story. It's actually coming out in a couple of days. It's a big Purdue feature that we had in the magazine for October and be out in out in a couple of days online. And I basically was like, so are we ripping up the plan? Like how do you go forward from this? And he's like, we kind of just have to do the same things we've been doing and do it better.
No.
And he pointed out a stat. He's like, yeah, we shot more uncontested threes than anyone in the country last year per whatever internal analytics service they have. And I was like, that's great. And all these guys are theoretically good shooters, but they didn't make them last year. They didn't make them against Arkansas. At some point, they're either going to have to make these open shots or find different players to make them.
I hate hearing that. I mean, my dad will love hearing that. My dad hates Purdue, so he'll love hearing that.
I think the framing was really, let's double down on what we're good at.
Yeah, don't do that, Matt. I think that what you need to do, this is what Purdue and Tennessee both need to do it, is you need to, instead of practicing your strengths and saying we're good at this, let's just go on even harder into that. Step away from the strength, let go of the strength, and say, I trust that will be there as I go work on this other thing, and I will work on this other thing. And when I need to go back to the strength, I trust that it's not going to just slowly float away. It'll be there. That's the thing with Tennessee. I want Tennessee to trust that you'll still be good. Play Dalton Connect a bunch of minutes, Rick. I promise your team will still be good defensively. You might not be the number 1 team in the country defensively, but it'll all work. Your defense will be fine. Same with Purdue. You don't have to dump it into Zach. You don't have to. Oh my God. I hate hearing that. You don't have to play Ethan Morton 21 minutes when he puts up a 21 trillion against Arkansas, basically. Ethan Morton. I see the vision with Ethan Morton. I think Ethan Morton's a good locker room guy. I think Ethan Morton's a good defender in certain spots. Ethan Morton is kind of my litmus test with Purdue. However many minutes he gets this year is going to tell me how good this Purdue team can be. And if he's starting, which I think he came off the bench in this game, thankfully, but he's also he also very obviously is the coach's pet. Matt Painter fucking loves him.
There was a great and this is obviously not Painter's work, but Purdue tweeted a graphic 2 weeks ago that was the outstanding 2020 recruiting class or 2019, whichever class it was that had Ivy. It was a 3-man class. It was Ivy, Edie, and Ethan Morton, and it listed Ivy, and it's top 5 pick, all conference, all his awards. Zach Edey, National Play of the Year, all records, and then it's listed Ethan Morton, all glue guy team, John Ross team. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I know that you had to include him on this graphic, but you also didn't have to include him on this graphic.
You didn't, and oh my God, dude, yeah. That's the problem. Ethan Morton is the problem with Matt Painter, is that he sees Ethan Morton and he says, that's a guy I want on my team, and that's a guy I want to give. He's a leader. He's a locker room guy. He's a glue guy. He is all those things, but he's also a guy that has a very obvious ceiling, and you playing him a lot of minutes is going to put a very obvious ceiling on your team.
He helps you win the Big Ten regular season championship.
Yes. Why do we care that much about it? Why? Because that's like the Purdue, that is the Purdue way of life, is they win the regular season Big Ten championship, and then they have to listen to the Indiana fans, which I know they haven't won since 1987, but that's the rivalry in a nutshell. It's like Purdue is like, yeah, but we win in the regular season, and IU fans are like, who gives a shit about the regular season, dude? We have 5 banners, and Purdue's like, yeah, well, if you're so good at winning the tournament, why can't you be? And I feel like that has become their identity, is because that's the Big Ten regular season championships is the only ace up the sleeve that Purdue fans have when they're arguing with IU fans, so it kind of becomes the program's identity, and it's like we have to go all in on that. You don't, because when you go all in on that, we see what happens. You lose in March. It drives me fucking crazy, and I say this as a guy who grew up hating Purdue basketball, and I should like revel in it, but like I can't. They made my mother cry, Kevin. My mom went to Purdue. She's a Purdue fucking legend. Her face is hanging in Mackey Arena as like one of the greatest Purdue basketball players in men's or women's history. I went to the IU Purdue game with her last year, and Jalen Hood-Schifino had like 43 points, I want to say, and was dicing them up. And my mom was crying, and she wasn't crying because Purdue lost. She was crying because she said, like, I wanted you to have a great experience. Because I told her if I go with her, I will cheer for Purdue with her. So I'm cheering for Purdue the whole game with her. We're clapping when the Boilers are going on runs and stuff. They lose, and she's not even sad that they lost. She's just like, it breaks my heart that this could have been such a special day for us, and Purdue ruined it. And that's just. And then she calls me after they lose in the tournament. She's like, same thing. Like I really had this vision of like me going to the Final Four and you were covering the Final Four, and like we could have had a special experience with. I've had a fuck enough of this program. You're making my mother cry, Matt. Stop it. Stop making my mom cry.
Are you banned from Mackey now?
I don't know. I should try to get banned from Mackey.
That'd be great.
I should make that the goal of mine. Is like every time I go there, they lose. No, I have a weird relationship with Purdue that we don't need to. Yeah, I donate money. Purdue's the only university on this planet that I donate money to. I don't even give money to Ohio State, but I donate money to Purdue every year for the Purdue Day of Giving. It's the only school I'm a booster for, and I hate them. But Purdue fans can't say anything to me because, like, anytime – yeah, I don't know. I can talk as much shit about Purdue as I want because I can just play the booster card.
Yeah, write some checks next time before you want to talk to
Yeah, exactly. I do that online. Purdue fans like, you hate our program. I'm like, if I hate your program so much, why am I donating money to you guys? So I hate – if it comes across like me hating you, it's that I as a booster am unhappy with the results I'm getting. My money is not going to good use right now. Anyway – long tangent. Maybe we should talk about Arkansas. They're the team that won this game. But I think Purdue's going to the Final Four. What you said earlier, the idea of a Virginia 2.0 situation, I don't think Purdue's going to win the national championship because I do think at a certain point the guard play is going to catch up with them, and I think that you gotta have good guard play to win a national championship. I don't think they're going to have good enough guard play, but I do think they're going to go to the Final Four, but that's watching the Arkansas game. I'm just like screaming, like this is all the same shit. You fix nothing. You fix nothing in the offseason. But be that as it may, they were still the number one team for like half the season last year. So maybe they
right. You look up and like, man, Purdue didn't fix anything. This is why they stink. And you look up and like, all right, like they basically played even with the top 15 team on the road and it's to sell.
Right. Yeah. So like it's
the floor is really high.
They have a very, very high floor. But if Ethan Morton's playing 21 minutes and doing nothing, they're going to have a very low ceiling as well. The Arkansas part of this, I think Arkansas fans are right to be excited because as is often the case with Muss, you have so many new faces, so many transfers, so many guys, even like a guy like Travion Brazil who isn't a new guy, quote unquote, but he also kind of is because he didn't play most of last year. You want to see it. You're like, I know all the names on the roster. I can talk myself into this being a good team, but I want to see what it looks like out on the court. So this being the first real sign of what Arkansas could be, they look pretty good. I
think... And I don't know. I think the numbers will back this up, but it's just like a half-baked take, which is great.
Perfect for this show.
I think Muss is better when he has like old transfers who understand that like a college coach is going to chew them out and like don't really care that much than he is dealing with like 5-star diva freshmen. Right?
Yeah.
Like I think Black was okay, but like the whole Nick Smith saga last year, I think kind of illustrated that where it's like. Muss just doesn't really want to have... Like, Muss is such a handful to deal with that you kind of have to be through a few wars in college basketball, and one, have the buy-in of like, this is my last or second last chance to go win one, and two, like, I understand like coach is going to say some nonsense and it's okay, right?
Yeah. You have to know that yes, Muss is crazy, but all coaches are crazy.
Right.
And if you go experience a different coach, they're just crazy in a different way. Yeah, then it does help when you get that first dose of like, this dude's crazy. This is Eric Musselman might be crazy. It's more endearing if you've experienced, like Trayvon Mark is not a guy who's
there might be only one guy crazier than Muss. Samson. Right. So I think that will help them, especially early in the year. Like Muss's, like their arc the last couple of years has basically been early, like good in November, horrible in December and early January, have like a come to Jesus moment around Martin Luther King Day, and then like start rolling into March. And I think maybe it'll be a little bit more stable this year, just because they're a little bit more transfer heavy. They still have some questions rotation. I remember like the Nevada Muss teams, he always had like 7 total players on the roster, and that actually worked out really well because it took out all the like what if we do this? What if we do this? Yeah. I think Muss is like an overthinker. So my gut feel is that him having like 10 playable guys will make it a little bit more challenging from early in the year, but I still think them being older will
if they're older and they kind of understand that playing less, producing less on a team that's great is way more fun, way better for you individually too than being a superstar. I mean, great example is L. Ellis, who in this game, like L. Ellis looked like he was Andy Dufresne and broken out of Shawshank Prison. He was like that looked like a guy who was, so happy to be on a team that is actually going to win basketball games.
It's like I'm not getting booed.
Yeah,
this is great. Yeah,
he was the only guy that could play on Louisville last year. He was the only guy that did shit, and oh my god, I can't imagine how freeing it must be to now be in Fayetteville and be on a good basketball team. But yeah, dude, they're so deep. Devo Davis had 2 points in this game. He's their leading returning scorer, did basically nothing. That's the question where that I have with Arkansas is if this team can be okay with if a guy like Devo Davis, which I think he's a pretty good dude. Like I think he'll handle it well. But like if you can have guys that are okay with on this night you score 2 points, but then on this night we're gonna need you to have 19. But on this night, you know what, L, it's not your we're Khalif Battle off the bench. He's hot. Like let's feed him and like ride him if they can fall into that rhythm where like Trayvon Mark's like, you know what, I'm good, man. I'll just play defense. You guys seem to have it on offense. If they can all figure that out, they're going to be really really good. Because Brazil is a guy too that's like, oh my god, I saw him in Maui last year right before he got hurt, and I thought Arkansas was national title good before he went down. I was like, this team is super young. But he added a different element to them that was like if they can figure it out and go on the path that you say, like a typical Arkansas team, like by the time the tournament rolls around, they are going to be so good. And they kind of still ended up being so good without him.
Right.
So
and they missed his like the spacing last year at the 4, like because they were already having to play a big. All of a sudden they're playing 2 bigs and neither big could shoot, and you have Anthony Black who couldn't really shoot. It was just too much, and I think. Like they would have avoided all that if Brazil had been out there and able to just like hit, catch, and shoot threes. He's a pro. Like he's going to be really good for them and look really healthy, which was big too. Like you worry about a guy like so much of his game is athleticism. Coming off the ACL, how would he look? He looked explosive as ever.
Yeah. But this is what's fun about the exhibition games. I really do think that every team won. Kansas would be the one team that I would say like if I'm trying to think of the 3 games we just talked about, the 6 fan bases, like who's coming away like, shit, we're in trouble. It might be Kansas, but even then, like it's Kansas, so you trust Bill Self.
I'd be most underwhelmed probably if I was Kansas, just from the standpoint of like, I think we think we're the number 1 team in the country, and there's also no every other team can make the excuse no matter how small. Like, oh yeah, it was an exhibition, we played our bench, like everybody got in the game, like Illinois played like 12 guys in the first half and then kind of narrowed it down. Like Kansas had 8 guys, so. Kansas played 8 guys. Like there's no built-in excuse of like, we were just screwing around with lineups. Like they have who they have.
I think Self talked to Hunter too, because Dickinson having that quote where he's like, I love being number 1. I want everyone to know we're better than them. Did you see in you were probably there in the post-game press conference when Hunter was asked like about the Illinois fans? Eddie's
first of all, just like all-time Illinois media question. It's just so on brand. Like, what do you think of the Illinois fans, Hunter? Like, just all-time gotcha question.
Yeah, it really is, because it's not. It's irrelevant at this point. They're not in the same conference. He's not going to play there again. Like it's an exhibition game.
What does it matter what he thinks of the fans?
Who cares?
Like,
But the Illinois media just has to twist the knife a little bit, stir the pot. But him just racking his brain and saying like, nope, shouldn't say that. Shouldn't say that. Shouldn't say. I'm not going to answer that.
It was impressive restraint.
That was very impressive and very unlike Hunter Dickinson, which makes me think that Bill Self was probably like, "Hey, listen, man, we're not in Michigan anymore. Let's tighten this shit up." But yeah, that's the joy of these exhibition games. Is they were fun for a neutral guy like me. I loved watching them. I love the environments. I love the broadcast yesterday too, where they're like interviewing the coaches throughout the games. They throw the headset on, and Rick Barnes is talking. At one point during Michigan State, Tennessee, actually at a couple points, I think, Izzo and Barnes both have headsets on, and they're like talking to each other as they're coaching the game. And Rick Barnes is like having a conniption because he wants to like yell at his team because they're turning the ball over like crazy, and he's like trying to answer the question. And he's on camera, and I don't think he realizes he's on camera, and he's like, "Get the fuck." Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I love our guys right now. He's like, "Pass the fucking shit." But we gotta. It was cracking me up, but the broadcast was awesome. They're interviewing, like Malik Hall hops on the thing, the microphone at one point. They're interviewing him. I thought the whole thing was just so enjoyable as a college basketball fan. And on top of it, like I said, it is an exhibition. So even if you lose, you're not really coming away from this saying like, "Oh, we suck." I think every fan base is probably like, "We're all right. We'll be all right." That was a fun experience. I wish we had more of these. I hope they become norm.
There's no negatives in it. Like let's play them, let's market them, let's make money for whatever charity we want to support.
Yeah, just let's do these without needing a natural disaster to prompt them. Other college basketball stuff. Cooper Flagg commits this morning to Duke. That's the news that sends shockwaves. Who saw that coming? That the kid that the second any of us saw, like. Take yourself back, Kevin, to the very first time you saw a clip of Cooper Flagg play basketball. You probably thought what I thought, which is like, that kid's going to Duke, right? That's a Duke guy. And then the recruitment plays out exactly as we all anticipated. Do you think UConn was ever really – because it felt like there was a little smoke there. It felt like UConn fans were talking themselves into it, but I never really fully bought it.
I think they gained ground. I don't think they gained enough ground for it really to be a thing. Mm-hmm. I will say it was really funny because there was all this like, if you spend enough time on Twitter, you probably saw like UConn fan being like, well, Cooper Flagg just followed Dan Hurley's wife on Instagram or like some like all sorts of stuff like that. And I was like, Cooper Flagg has played this recruitment so close to vest. He doesn't talk to anyone. Like he doesn't really do interviews. But he's going to give away the whole thing on Instagram followers.
Right.
Like, it just didn't make sense to me. So I was always kind of like, all right, it's Duke.
I knew UConn was doomed when Cooper Flagg's official visit was a UConn-Duke football game and Duke smacked him.
Yeah.
I was like, that's not a great omen. Not a great.
There's certain schools where you probably want the official visit to be a non-football weekend. Yeah. UConn probably one of them.
That was one of them. No, it's good for Shire though. I mean, I think this year, we have to see what Kentucky looks like. USC, I guess, has some freshmen. Obviously, Bronny, but Collier's out there too. I guess he's technically the number one guy in the country. But it does feel like this freshman class doesn't have the buzz, doesn't have the juice. So Cooper Flagg, like I do think that's missing a little bit from college basketball this year. I'm very excited for the season, but there is no guy that the casuals would go. I mean, maybe it's Cohen Carr. Maybe he's the freshman right in front of us the whole time. But yeah, having Cooper, we're going to definitely get that with him next year. It's going to be Zion-like in terms of the hype and everything.
Right. It's going to be. I mean, if he's good, which I mean, every time I've watched him, he's been unbelievable. Like it's going to, I think, exceed Zion. Like it will give like the people who don't watch college basketball a reason to talk about college basketball.
Right.
Which like I know there's like lots of mixed opinions. Like, do college basketball fans want people in their little like space? But like, yes, it's good for it's good for the sport if like Duke is playing on Saturday and people feel like they have to watch.
Yeah.
And people are going to have to watch Cooper because he's really entertaining to watch play.
So I was getting a debate in the office today. Do you think he's going to be hated? Because he is a white guy going to Duke, but my argument was like, you can't just blanket hate all the white guys that go to Duke, because then when the actual hateable white guys come along, you're kind of the boy who cried wolf, and it has to mean something when you bring the hatred to the white guy at Duke. The early read I have on Cooper Flagg, not hateable. He seems, I guess there could be a path. Like, he seems confident, which is basically all it takes. If you're like a white guy playing basketball and you're confident in yourself, everyone's like, what the fuck are you confident about, dude? Like, who do you think you are? people hate you. I don't really feel like he's super hateable, but it seemed like the people I was arguing with at the office, they're like, oh no, we're gonna hate him. We're gonna definitely hate him.
He was definitely like white guy of the summer, and that's a great thing to have for him forever. But like I will say, at Peach Jam, he won a game with a block. Like 3 seconds left, they're up 1. He blocks a kid shot, like pins it against the backboard, wins them the game. And he's like sitting on the ground, like flexing and just screaming, "Give me that shit! Give me that shit!" And I was like, the first time he does this in college basketball, everyone is turning against him, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think he'll come in, people will like him. Slowly throughout the year, he will get hate. Like, I mean, Chet had haters, but in like a different way. Like Chet had haters, like, this guy's just too skinny. Like,
yeah, right.
Where I don't think Cooper people didn't like hate Chet the person. I don't think they're gonna really hate Chet or Cooper the person, but maybe if he does enough celebrating.
Chet was an instance of you fear what you don't understand, and you were seeing a guy out there that you've never really seen look like that before, playing in a way you've never really seen a guy that skinny. Like it just like kind of broke your brain a little bit. And then Wemby came along and like took it to another level. But that was the hatred people had for Chet. Was like I don't fully understand what I'm looking at, so I get this out of my face. I think that was the Chet thing. No, I don't think Cooper Flagg is hateable yet. Yeah, things can change. You could get to Duke. He could see his own face on the cover of all these magazines, and everyone's pumping his tires, and he could puff his chest a little bit and be a little too cocky. But I just enjoy watching him play basketball right now. I don't think he's hateable at all. But we'll see. Last thing before I let you go, I want to talk about the NIT. How sad are you about this?
So, I think it sucks. Like I grew up kind of mid-major guy, and it sucks that these teams don't have that opportunity. I will say I was stunned by how many people seem to really have strong takes about and like opinions about the NIT. I was like, I watch more college basketball than almost anyone. I went to 74 college basketball games last year. Like I admit I have a problem. I don't think I watched a single NIT game. Like I watched like 4 minutes of Vanderbilt, Michigan while I was at a bar. Like that was the extent of my NIT consumption. So I don't think people actually care about the product. They care about like they wish mid-major teams had a thing to like leave the season when they lose in the conference tournament. Like, man, at least they made the NIT,
right? And
then move on. And now that they don't have that, it kind of sucks.
I wanted to just ask everybody who's complaining who won the NIT last year. Everybody was like, "How could you do this to the NIT?" I just want to be like, just tell me who won the 2023 NIT, and I'll allow you to keep complaining. And I guarantee the vast majority of people will be like, "Well, I didn't really watch," but which is exactly the reason they're doing this is because nobody watches anymore. It does suck and it's sad, and I'm not pro this whatsoever. But I think the real reason people are upset about this is less about the NIT and more about what this means for the NCAA tournament. That we know that the power conferences are turning the screws a little bit on the power they have over the sport, and it's been floated already about the NCAA tournament expanding and giving more power conference teams a path in. That seems to be the implication. But for those that are listening or watching that don't know what we're talking about, the NIT announced that like the rule change is that the top 2 of the Power 6 conferences, which is the Power 5 in football plus the Big East, the top 2 teams that miss the NCAA tournament automatically go to the NIT, which is noteworthy because like a team like Ohio State last year had a losing record and lost like 14 out of 15 games, should not be a postseason team. Right. They, under this new situation, would have made the NIT last year. And what that means is all the lower level mid-major teams that it used to be if you won the regular season conference championship but did not win your conference tournament and then you missed the NCAA tournament, you're automatically in the NIT. Those teams are out. You have to now be one of the better teams. I think this is Fox's problem. This is a Fox problem, though, because the Fox tournament going on in Vegas is like competing. They were trying to kill the NIT, so the NIT kind of had to answer to that.
Right. Everyone is making this a story of, this is everyone ganging up to like steal the auto bids from the NCAA tournament or whatever narrative, right? Expand the NCAA tournament, whatever. And yes, they may use this power to do that eventually, but this decision is really because Fox was trying to take the schools that they have the rights to during the regular season and say, why would we put you on ESPN for the NIT? Let's make our own thing in Vegas and package it that way. And ESPN was like, well, this is already like not a super profitable enterprise that we're running here. So like we might as well like just make. It's the NCAA was like, all right, well, fine, we can give you Ohio State instead of North Texas next year. Yeah, and everyone's like, all right, we're happy with that. Let's move on.
Yeah, I don't think too many people are actually mourning the NIT. Except my guy NIT Stu. Thoughts and prayers to him.
There's a few NIT bracketologists out there. And doing a preseason NIT bracketology is crazy.
I had NIT Stu's been on the show before, and I remember telling him that he is kind of like the Grim Reaper of college basketball, where once he starts mentioning your team, you're like, oh fuck,
we're so screwed.
Like I remember last year when he started tweeting about Ohio State, and I was like, Stu, don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. And then it got to a point where I was like, okay, Stu, start tweeting about Ohio State. I actually want to make the NIT at this point because we're so bad. Yeah, the man loves the NIT. I feel for him. I imagine he's still gonna love it. But yeah, it's a sad day. It's a bad day for him. Kevin Sweeney, Sports Illustrated. Follow him. What's your Twitter handle?
CBB_Central.
There you go. Go follow him on Twitter. Go follow his work. You had the story about Jalen Tyson losing his waiver. Is it done? He can't.
He's in the appeal process right now. Yeah. So hopefully cooler heads prevail on that front.
Yeah, Jalen. I think if your coach leaves, which I know he didn't like his coach, but like that's the usual circumstances. The coach leaves, and then you like the coach, and now you want to transfer, whatever. I think under any circumstance, really, what am I saying? You should just be able to transfer whenever you want. I think you should be able to transfer in the off season whenever you want. In the middle of the season, it creates a problem, but I think something's got to be done about that.
I would be fine with 1 time plus all coaching changes plus grad transfers.
Yeah, maybe
but
that's
at minimum. It really should be 1 time plus if your coach says some racist shit to you get to be eligible, and that's
if your coach calls you a slave and you are not a white basketball player, you're a black kid at a college and your head coach calls you a slave. That's what it was, right? Like he just fucking called him a slave. Like, yeah, I imagine you might not want to go back there. It's all insane, but anyway. Kevin had a great story about that, and you do great shit, man. And I appreciate you making time. We're gonna have to do this more often. Now you're a Chicago guy. We're in Chicago. This was great.
Yeah, it's great to come in. Hopefully, I'll be back soon.
All right, thank you to Kevin. That was fun. I have to have him back on. He's officially in the fold. We're throwing Kevin in the fold. Whether he likes it or not, he's gonna have to come back in and offer up some college basketball takes. I'm more sad about the NIT than I realized. I need to bring in, by the way, some decorations for the studio. I should bring in my NIT merch and my NIT. People forget I won the NIT. Me personally, I won it in 2008. I'm an NIT champion, and that's the only postseason anything I won in college. I guess we lost the national championship the year before. So yeah, I need the NIT to be. Yeah, wait a second. This would be great for my legacy if the NIT is like really something, you know? Like if the NIT becomes like a marquee event, that ages my NIT ring really well.
You're a distinguished NIT alumni.
Yeah, right.
If you win the NIT, you could go on to do great things like Mark Titus.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm one of the commercials, like looking in the science tubes, like some schools do, where they're like, this guy who played shooting guard for us, he's now a scientist.
Whoa.
Like, what's that green juice he's looking at? Did he invent flubber? And it's like, yes, he did. And it all started here.
At the NIT. I'm surprised you have anything left from that because of how, like, there was kind of like a dark, stormy cloud cast over that NIT run, no? Coming off of going to the Final Four.
Yeah, it was the weirdest. I think I've talked about it on the show before, but it was like the weirdest celebration I've ever seen in my life where, like, we were all – we win, we all hug each other. I remember the hug with Coach Mata specifically, where it was just like the weirdest energy because it was like we're so happy. We were just happy we didn't lose because I think we all thought the only thing worse than being in the NIT is losing in the NIT. So like let's just win this thing if we got to be here. But then we cut down nets and we got the trophy and all that. But then the second we got to the locker room, we like just threw the trophy off to the side. Never really saw it again. We got back to Ohio State. I think they threw the trophy away.
Right.
I think Motto was like, "Fuck this trophy. We don't celebrate this stuff." But at the same time, I talked about it with Evan. I think when Evan was on the show, we talked about it a little bit. But NIT's back. I should. Did they do it in Vegas? I need to. We need to get NIT Stu back in here to talk to him about it all. I should try to finagle like a free trip to Vegas for the NIT every year, where they can like parade me out, introduce me at halftime of one of the semifinal games.
Yeah.
NIT champion Mark Titus is in attendance, and I'm just kind of, you know.
There has to be some sort of like grandmaster role that you could play, like the master of ceremonies.
Yeah,
for the NIT.
yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, special guest tonight, 2008 champion, and I'm just waving at all the. Yeah, I'm the. Is there an NIT parade? Can I be the grand marshal of the parade? Anyway, enough about that. Some shout outs before we get out of here. Michigan beat Marquette 115-111. I said that at the top of the show. Apparently, this was like they played like NBA rules. There was like 4 quarters of 12 minutes each, which is why I think people are trying to explain the score was so high. That does not explain why Marquette lost to a team that is not supposed to be an NCAA tournament team. I don't really know. Marquette might have had starters out. This is the joys of secret scrimmages. We don't really know all the facts. All that was reported that I saw from Shirley Donovan was that Michigan beat Marquette. Michigan might have inadvertently just put a target on their back because Michigan was an afterthought going into the Big Ten this year, but now we're going to have to take them seriously. We're going to have to take Michigan seriously. How early is too early to start worrying about Marquette's defense, by the way? They were not great defensively last year. They are a quote-unquote bring everybody back team. I don't think they're going to be great defensively this year, and letting Michigan score 115 points on them, granted it was a 48-minute scrimmage. I want to believe that there was some fuckery afoot where, they were toying with lineups. They were like Marquette was like, we're going to throw a 2-3 zone out there for a little while just to see what it looks like. We have no intention of ever using it throughout the season, but Michigan, like Juwan, I said this before on the show, but I think I said it with Jim when he was in here, Jim Root. A lot of these scrimmages do work that way where coaches are like, we want to work on our press offense, so can you press us? And then there's like an agreement that like for the next 5 minutes, both teams are going to press. Now, the team pressing might not have a great press. They might not have any intention of pressing, but they're doing it because they're trying to help each other out. Same with like zone defenses, that sort of thing. I want to believe that that's what was going on here because otherwise, if they played this straight up, if this was like a Kansas-Illinois situation where both teams were like kind of leaning on their starters heavily and Marquette lost, that is a result I will be revisiting a lot throughout the season. But we've moved on to exhibition season. So secret scrimmages, they're last week. They are so last week. Who cares about secret scrimmage? We moved on to charity exhibitions, which is why we're also not really going to spend a lot of time on Clemson beating Ohio State by 20, which is what people were saying happened. But unfortunately,
how can we even know if any of that is real or not?
Great point, TJ.
Who's Trilly Donovan?
Who's Trilly Donovan? Who is Trilly? Trilly, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
Fight me, bitch. You're going to tweet out that Ohio State lost by 20 with no sources? No. You can't do that. No, we beat Dayton, dude. We beat Dayton. There's a televised exhibition. We beat Dayton. There was a secret scrimmage. We lost to Clemson. Which one are you going to put more stock into? The one I saw with my own 2 eyes or the one I heard secondhand? We're good. We're fine. We're not worried. What I might be worried about, though, St. John's apparently lost to like a Division 2, 3, 4, 5 NAIA team. That's tough. They were called Pace, too, which felt a little on the nose with Rick Pitino, if you know what I'm saying. Rick Pitino having problems with pacing. Yeah. And then the other result that I wanted to call out, Rutgers beat DePaul. Your boys.
Huge.
Blew them out.
I made sure to mention that to you in the third quarter of the Ohio State-Wisconsin game.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that was on the forefront of your mind at the
time.
You
did. You did. That is the only reason I knew it happened. You're just like, you're like, look at the. During that game, there were two newsworthy items. One, Zupi turns to me and he's like, "Holy shit, dude, look at this!" And it was Matthew Perry died, and then you, with the exact same sense of like importance,
yeah,
said, "Holy shit, dude, look at this." And it was Rutgers beat DePaul by 32 in a scrimmage.
Yeah.
So some would say they're just as important.
One man's trash.
Yeah, exactly. Last thing, the NBA in-season tournament is happening sooner than you think. And they released the courts today, and
yeah.
Does the NBA hate me? That's all I want to add. Like I've tried so hard to like the NBA. I love professional basketball. I love really good basketball players. I love watching really good basketball players play basketball. But I fucking hate the NBA, I think. I think like I just can't I am so obviously not the demographic for the NBA. I feel like they hate me. What are these courts for the in-season tournament? If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go look it up. They're disgusting, every single one of them. The concept of the in-season tournament is disgusting. It is so stupid. The idea that the NBA is doing like their version of the FA Cup, which is so awesome in England. There's two things about the FA Cup that make it awesome, though. One, it is 1,000,000 years old. They've been doing it forever, since before like soccer made money, and they were just like, you know, a bunch of dudes kicking a ball around a cow pasture. So there's like a tradition and a history to it that makes it cool. Two, they let the top league teams play in it. That's what makes it so special, is that like the David Goliath element of it. The NBA is just NBA teams doing a circle jerk in the middle of the season for a tournament that started this year. I don't get it whatsoever. The NBA people don't seem to really get it, like the NBA media people. Now they're throwing out these courts that are absolutely horrendous. It all just drives me crazy, and part of me feels like maybe I'm just an old man and I just need to like shut it down and stop trying to fight it and just say like, dude, you're just an old man and you lose, Grandpa. Go sit on the sidelines. But then like the small part of me, TJ, just keeps saying, I'm right. I know I'm right. God damn it, I know I'm right. And I'm way too young to be this old. I'm not that old. Like I should still matter, damn it. But I don't. I obviously don't, because like every decision that the NBA seems to make, I fucking hate. I hate it with every fiber of my being. But at the same time, I love how good these players are, and I love watching professional basketball. But then I get branded as a guy who hates the NBA, and I'm like, listen, it's complicated. I hate the NBA because I love it so much. I used to love it so much, and now you have this in-season tournament bullshit. The courts today. I was sitting in this chair when we just got done doing mostly sports, and you're like, "Do you see the courts?" I literally thought it was a joke. I thought like this can't be. I thought we were getting ball sack sports. I was like, there's no way that the NBA is playing this tournament with these courts.
Yeah, it's like I think it's similar to what's happening with the city edition jerseys, like the whole minimalist design thing, which is like a whole scheme across all design right now, but it looks so stupid. Like it looks like it was done in 5 seconds by a guy that just learned how to do Photoshop like paint bucket fills. It's going to look horrible on TV. Well,
you're way younger than me, so if you're saying that...
I think the majority of people don't like the way this
so
looks.
I'm trying to figure out who they're trying to win over. Like, who is the target demo for the NBA right now?
I don't know. It's going to look horrible on TV. You're going to have people that are able to, like, do the same thing as, like, a green screen effect and, like, take the court out and put stupid shit underneath it, because that's just, like, how the internet... It's going to look terrible. Yeah. The Madison Square Garden one is bright orange. The Bulls one is bright red. Like, you can't... That's not going to look good in any... That's going to, like... You ever watch like a Boise State game? And you're like, oh, that's cool. Like, but if every college football team had that, it's no longer cool. Like, that's not how you get something over. Yeah.
Anyway, that's the NBA news, I guess. Wembenyama might be a bust. I don't know.
That's first reported.
It's first reported. I'm rubbing my hands together. Get the footage ready from when I was calling it before the draft. No, that's this is the most obvious thing ever. It's like, yeah, of course this guy's not gonna be the greatest player of all time. He has already gotten to the point though where his highlight, like I saw the one clip slow-mo where he's Russell Westbrook's challenging a shot and then he switches it to his left hand and he like throws it in, and like the NBA media people that I follow somehow got thrown into my timeline where people were drooling over how insane it is to see Victor Wembanyama in slow-mo adjust his shot. He missed the shot. He misses the shot, but he's already reached the level where they're like, oh, my God, this guy's unstoppable. When he's literally in the play you're tweeting was stopped. He did not score. So, yeah, I don't know. I think being a Wembanyama hater was a smart move for me. I think that was an investment that's going to pay dividends. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you to Kevin Sweeney for coming in, talking through these exhibitions. Thank you to everyone watching, listening. One more thing before we go. We got to promo the Barstool Sports Invitational. If you're listening to this still, you're a college basketball fan. And for that reason alone, if you're someone who's also in the Chicago, area, you got to come to the Barstool Invitational, Wintrust Arena. FAU versus Loyola. FAU is a top 10 team. They had their problems with North Carolina, but as we talked about, as I said to Jim Root, I don't even think that game actually happened. I think that was just like a PR. That was just some gamesmanship going on. FAU is a top 10 team. Loyola is a team that's been to a Final Four not that long ago. Mississippi State, Arizona State, doubleheader. All the Barstool personalities are going to be there. It's going to be a ton of fun. Halftime shows are going to be ridiculous. The coverage, and if you're watching at home, how do people watch it at home?
Barstool.tv.
Barstool.tv. We'll be streaming it. It's going to be awesome. Very, very funny. Very fun. A college basketball experience unlike anything you've ever seen. So put that on your calendar, Wednesday, November 8th. In the meantime, I'll see all you guys Thursday.
Happy Halloween, Mark.
Happy Halloween. I forgot to say it was show 69, but that's okay. I've matured. We don't care about stuff like that anymore, do we?